because they illuminate the way. And a great quote that was written actually in the doorframe of one of the doors in Cathedral: "His face did shine as the sun." His being capitalized makes one believe that his is referring to God. And his face did shine as the sun. God, sun. The connection is glaring. So, Molly and I were ecstatic. We again see the connection between nature and God. The sun sheds light, can be brutal. You can feel its raw power at times, but yet one can't live without it. And even the way the church was built, the lighting, dim, 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 bam, spotlight on Jesus. Jesus is illuminated. Jesus is illuminating. The sight of Jesus is illuminating to those watching him. It's almost a scientific process. It's incredible. It's even the way the church is built for lighting, for illuminating. And, there's an emphasis on nature. Adam and Eve, St. Peter's snakes. We see in the stained glass windows all these depictions of agricultural, farming, all these noble professions. They're extremely closely tied to Christianity and the faith, And I think, like in other religions, agriculture is the basis from which a lot of these religions grew. And for instance, Saint Michael, the protector, one might say, of Christianity, the universality of Christianity. He's depicted in Cathedral carrying a flaming sword. He's the great protector, but this flame lights the scene, brings order to chaos, but yet it's extremely powerful and can be, quite frankly, painful. And I think that's the experience that many people have with religion. It's empowering, it's enlightening, but it can be painful at times. But then also we see, as I saw in a small corner of one stained glass window, Molly was good enough to spot it, the devil, and the devil was surrounded by flame. So here we go, as previously stated, a drastic view of hell, and the flame and brimstone that is accompanied with hell. The devil is associated with uncontrollable flame, which is interesting. That tension between flame in relation to God and flame in relation to the devil is one that we don't often see. And now, we see the commandments. The commandments are also surrounded by light. These are God's words. They're emanating light. They're enlightening. The symbolism, the metaphor, it's all there. And I can't believe I hadn't seen it before, but after this fieldwork project, I was able to see and analyze these things for myself. I am the root of the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. It's from scriptures in Christianity. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. John 9:5. Jesus equals light. He equals enlightenment. Fire represents the Holy Spirit. God is a consuming fire, and Jesus is the light of the world. These quotes, these connections, it's fascinating. It's the raw meat of religion. It's completely inspiring. It's almost too much to really comprehend, and I think the Baha'i put it very well, that it's almost too much for the human mind to comprehend. But these tensions are just fascinating. And then we get to Islam. Now, Islam, after studying and doing research and, interacting with some of my Muslim friends, is very interesting. We, as a culture now, we have a very interesting view of what Islam is like today as religion. And I think, quite frankly, there's a lot of stereotyping about Islam. And, after studying it, I think, a lot of that is misguided and unfair. But I think, the rigidness or devotion that is associated with being a Muslim is definitely well-founded. I think to be a Muslim, a faithful and, faithfully practicing Muslim, you must be very devoted and willing to sacrifice. And, one of the glaring symbols in the Muslim faith is the star and crescent, seen on the Turkish flag, for instance. I don't know if it's consistent throughout the Muslim world, but, one of the largest symbols in Islam where symbolism isn't necessarily emphasized is the star and crescent. And crescent moon, sheds light, star, obviously, sheds light as well. So again, we see another connection with all the other Abrahamic religions. The moon, the stars, all emphasized, all important. Nature is important, light is important. They shine the way, they inspire hope, just like religion. But, as we know, in the Muslim faith, the depiction of Muhammad is forbidden, as is religious symbolism. And I would like to read a quote very quickly from a very interesting document. Humanity is located at the axis and the center of the cosmic milieu. By being taught the names of all things, we receive the keys to knowledge of all things and so gain domination over them. However, we receive this power only in our capacity as serving as God's vicegerent, Khalifa, on earth, not as a rebel against heaven. We are given the tools to live on this planet, but not in an effort to become independent, to carve our own road. The Muslim faith tells us, the Islamic faith tells us that this is all done in the name of Allah and to better the world in the way that Allah would like it to. And humanity is, in fact, the channel of grace for nature. For active participation in the spiritual world, that means one must enter the world of nature. Nature is directly connected to the spiritual world, even in Islam. And due to our intimate connection to nature, there's an intimate connection between the spiritual world and the natural world. So, our inner state is reflected in how, the natural world, how the rest of the world is run. The social order, the physical order, the intellectual order, all this stuff is a reflection of how humans are spiritually. And, I think this is very interesting. It holds humans extremely responsible for the state of the world and the way the world is headed, which is both very inspiring to see the role of humans being so trusted or emphasized, but also kind of worrying, because obviously humans do mess up sometimes. So, Molly and I did a lot of the major Abrahamic religions: Christianity, Judaism, Christianity, the Baha'i. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of go away from that and see what some of the other major world religions were like. And so I decided to interview my friend Tej. Excuse me, I'm going to get my charger really quickly. And Tej is a Hindu, and he is one of my good friends. I've known him for a very long time, and my family's always been obsessed with India and the Indian culture, and I've always been interested in the Hindu faith and the different roles of different types of symbols and different types of people in it. So I saw this as a great opportunity to kind of delve into those interests, and I decided to question one of my good friends, Tej. And he tells me that light and fire are two very important symbols in Hinduism. His family lights a fire every evening before they start their prayers. That brings them together. It's a communal thing. It's enlightening, it's warming, it's inspiring. Light is seen as knowledge, as seen in the Abrahamic faiths, and it chases out darkness and ignorance, just like in the Baha'i faith. It clears that cloud, it polishes that mirror, it brings order to chaos. So we see it's not just an Abrahamic thing, it's a universal thing, it's a human thing. In India, the popular religious celebration is Diwali, or the Festival of Lights. These lights, however, aren't physical lights, they're inner light, as seen in Quakerism. Diwali refers to the light of higher knowledge, dispelling all ignorance. Faith dispels ignorance. Unfortunately, I think we've seen in the modern world that faith is heavily associated with ignorance. But in theory, faith is taught in an effort to dispel ignorance, to ensure that ignorance is not bliss. Hinduism, Tej tells me, is all about its simplicity and non-materialistic views. And I think that's very similar to the Baha'i faith. The man who was very angry about the state of the world attributed a large amount of the blame to how materialistic the world has become. I think that's fair in some cases. And the ultimate goal in the Hindu faith is for one person to find themselves. And there's an infinite inner wealth that one must try and find in the Hindu faith. It's that idea that one may never reach that level of awareness or enlightenment during life, but it's the journey that matters. It's the pursuit of a nirvana type thing that makes life so important. And because of all this, that's why they light a lamp, in reverence to knowledge as the greatest forms of wealth. Enlightenment, knowledge, wisdom is priceless for the Hindu people. And I think that's consistent across all religious divides. Knowledge is the key. And so we went to a non-Abrahamic faith. And, we see great connections. We see great connections between Hinduism, with Judaism, with the Baha'i faith, with Christianity, with Islam. And then Molly and I decided that we would come to another friend, Rohan, who is not religious at all, but is not an atheist, which I think something I can personally attest to. He believes in heaven, but he doesn't believe in hell. He actually takes a more Baha'i type approach, and that everyone deserves to go to heaven at some point, but it's just a matter of time and practice and devotion, and showing of devotion until you actually get there. He's never really thought of light and fire, but he does associate them both with heaven. But he does associate light with heaven and fire with hell, which I think is very similar to how many people kind of see that. They don't really see the connection or the duality between them, but kind of separate them as two separate entities, one with heaven, one with religion, and one with hell, excuse me. And, he loves candles because they're really cool, which, I'm perfectly okay with that. I think candles are cool too. I think they can do a lot for it. They can really set the mood, if you know what I'm saying. They can set the mood. They're powerful tools to make a great ambiance. And fire is also cool. Lighting a fire, torches, putting some gasoline on a fire pit, that's all pretty fun stuff. And he makes the connection that it's unstoppable, which, for the fact that a non-religious person says recognizes that fire is unstoppable, not strictly physically speaking, but more spiritually as well, says volumes about the role of fire in modern culture and how it's developed and how it's become interwoven within society today. So yeah, Rohan likes candles and fire for a lot of the reasons why many religious folk like fire and candles. And, he recognizes that fire and candles are also useful, just like Rabbi Berg tells us that, candles during Shabbat were just used for practical reasons. Rohan also sees the reasons for candles and fire, that they're just practical and, needed to be used at times. And, he uses them to bring himself back to be centered. If he's feeling hectic or chaotic, he lights the candle, and the light brings order to chaos. Heard that before. So, for a non-religious person like myself, I've also, I guess, kind of subconsciously made these assertions and ideas without really understanding where they come from. And they may not come from there, but the fact that many humans, I'm not going to generalize, that many humans do make that connection with bringing order to chaos and other ideas like that speaks volumes. And he goes even further to say, that fire and light are one.